It sounds so commonsensical, doesn't it, to say that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence if you were to believe them. That sounds so right. But in fact, I think it's demonstrably false. It is simply not true that highly improbable events require extraordinary evidence in order to believe in them. And probability theorists realized this. From the time of Condorcet through John Stuart Mill, probability theorists debated over what it would take to establish the reality of a highly improbable event. And they realized very quickly that if you require that extraordinary events require extraordinary evidence, then we would be prevented from believing many ordinary but highly improbable events that happen all the time. For example, suppose you hear on the evening news an announcement of the pick in last night's lottery. Now that's an enormously improbable event, one chance out of millions perhaps. And yet, you would never need to have extraordinary evidence that was more probable than that in order to believe in it rationally. So what probability theorists came to see is that you need to consider not only the intrinsic probability of the event, but you also need to determine the ratio between the probability of the evidence that we have, given that the event occurred, versus the probability of that evidence if the event did not occur. And if that ratio weights in favor of saying the evidence is vastly more probable if the event occurred than if it did not, then that can serve to counterbalance any intrinsic improbability in the event itself. And so it's simply and demonstrably not the case that extraordinary events require extraordinary evidence, and that's why we are able to rationally believe in many extraordinary events on the basis of evidence that is not itself highly extraordinary.